Welcome to the Indie KidLit podcast. Join Marty Dumas and Elena Page on their quest to help children's and middle grade authors find the right audience and sell more books.
Welcome to the Indie KidLit podcast. I'm Elena Page.
And I'm Marty Dumas.
And today we're having our special workshopping, goal-setting session about the last 6 interviews that we've conducted. And goodness, it seems to roll around so quickly. I feel like it's a full-time job implementing all the suggestions that all the wonderful authors make. So where do we start?
Well, I'm like an oddly sequential person, so I would say let's start at the beginning, and work our way forward. So I like the first person that we had in this group of people that we were learning from is Karen Inglis. And Karen talked about a lot of things because Karen has like a pretty been pretty active in like the Indian small publisher community online and in-person events and stuff too. And so she had a lot of things to kind of bring to the table, particularly about like contacting schools and libraries and making yourself look good for them for when you make those contacts. Were there things that you took away from Karen that you put into your own practice, Elena?
I think she definitely gave me the confidence. Like I'll do my confession. I haven't actually done it yet. I haven't actually approached them, but I do feel one step closer. Like probably before we interviewed Karen, it was like, yeah, I'll do that. You know, maybe in 10 years time. Whereas I think sort of, you know, when she said you're going to fail, you're going to have a lot of them that say no or don't want you or whatever, you know, but you just got to keep going. I think that helped me psychologically. I don't know, what did you take from her the most?
Yeah, so I really have a thing that I have to work on about being able to approach schools and libraries. I love being in those spaces. I really like getting to hang out with kids. And I really like doing like presentations and stuff like that. I'm not shy in that sense, but I really don't like the putting myself forward kind of thing. And I don't know that I've come up with like a whole solution for that, but there are a couple of things that I took away and brought back to my, cause we have a little, I guess it's a micro press. I don't know. There's all these weird terms, but, and so then we have a little team of 5 people that includes me. That doesn't include all the authors. I'm the only author that's in the little team, but, so I brought it back to my team because our website for our little micro press, I guess little and micro press is redundant. The website for our micro press is not great. And it was never really meant to be great. It was more like a placeholder because I think that A, we just didn't get to it, and B, that we were thinking of it like, okay, well, we should have one so that it like is legit, but like not really thinking about actually leveraging the tool. And so one of the things that's happening right now, so like if you were watching this or listening to this in real time and you went over to our website, it's under construction. Hopefully it won't be by the time this actually airs, but you know, we'll see because life. And not like a beauty revamp, but like a structure revamp. So it'll have like, it hopefully will be more friendly for schools, bookstores, and librarians. I think that I was going to say that we had it set up like an author page, but we really didn't. It was just like, honestly, like, here's some stuff. Like, it wasn't really thought through. We didn't hire a web designer, much to the chagrin, I'm sure, actually, no, not even to the chagrin of like web designer friends, because we didn't even like try to bring them in on it, because we were kind of being like, oh, this is kind of a nothing thing. So we'll make it a something thing. And I will report back on that, whether or not it makes a difference. I do know right now that we're a very small group of people, all of us who are doing other things, right? So I'm writing and doing other things, and everybody else who's on the team has some kind of full-time job. Like our micro press is not paying a bunch of people's salaries. We were able to pay one intern's salary over the summer, but like that's not like it's not generating enough money to pay all of us full time. So we get a ton of emails that probably we wouldn't be getting if we had a better constructed website. So like so people being able to figure out how to do bulk orders, we shouldn't have to keep emailing about that, right? Like, or people figuring out like how to be able to order wholesale. Like we shouldn't have to keep emailing about that. Like the website should do a lot of that. And the same thing for like school and library editions of the books, which are totally available, but the website should be doing that work, and the website's not pulling its weight. So hopefully that sort of came from Karen. Honestly, the most direct thing that came from Karen for me, and I'm not like doing it now, is that I made sure that I personally have again, I think that the press has like fun big book covers and like table coverings and stuff like that go with the books, but like I personally didn't have them all. And here's a silly thing that came out of Karen's interview. If you were watching it on YouTube, her office space, she had it lined with like the giant puffy versions of her book covers, and I was like, that is slick. You look at you being slick. That is nice. So I've got that
true.
Just in case I'll be on an interview where the person would care about my actually care about my books. Which is not the case here. I don't like trying to sell to other authors like that. So I wouldn't put them up in my background here. Except maybe to show you.
Well, you have that gorgeous little cupboard, is it a cupboard? That door space right there, the kids' illustrations, just put your covers.
Yeah, that's like the artwork space, right? / like the cat is trying to kill us space because he keeps ripping the artwork down. Yeah.
Make it the cover space. You could have all your covers, but that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, we live here. Like I don't actually want to. That's not a thing of mine. All right.
And also beta readers, like she brought that up, but we've heard it a few times, but again, I don't know why when Karen said it, I'm like, I really need to take that on board and get beta readers. So I've got beta readers lined up for my next lot of books, which I hadn't done yet for any of the others. Yeah. And just for me, I just went to my kids' school and said, I need beta readers for this book, and this book. They need to be this age, and do any kids in the class volunteer? And a whole heap volunteered. So we'll see what comes of it.
That's really cool. That's very forward. I envy like, because you can do stuff like that. Like, I'm sure you like. Do you have to try really hard to get yourself to go into the kids' school? Because I feel like this is not the first time I've heard you say. So I marched down to my kids' school.
Yeah.
And I said,
with the kids' school, okay, this is my second confession for the day. With the kids' school, I'm good at marching in there because my son gets in trouble a lot. So,
Sweet.
I'm one of these. I have meetings with the teachers and the principal all the time, so they know me. So it's like, oh, it's just Helen. It's not like I'm kind of an anonymous parent. So I built that relationship up over so many years that I'm kind of brazen enough to do it. And if they said no, I wouldn't be crushed. But I'm not so brave at other schools because I don't know their sort of culture. And also the bit I haven't overcome in my own head is I'm beginning to feel a bit more like a professional author, which, came through, I can't remember, it might have been Karen or Bo that said that. But still in my mind, I'm afraid to approach schools in case they say like, so who published you? And if I say I'm independently published, they might go, oh, and that's probably still a bit of, I don't know, it could be in my head, but I won't know till I try it. And if somebody ever says it, then I have to think of a good comeback. Any suggestions?
Yeah.
But that's normally
I think that you just like say it firmly and just stop, like with a smile at the end. I think it'll probably be good enough. That's so interesting because so really, I feel like maybe I want to slip in the mindset thing here because like I really, really have very strong relationships with the people at my children's school. I taught there for many, many years. I still love and know like more than half of the teachers there and the administration there. And I feel like that makes me even more uncomfortable because I feel like I know for sure they would do it if I asked them to. And so then I feel like I'm putting them in a weird position where they can't say no. So then that makes me uncomfortable to ask them, which is funny.
Yeah, that makes sense from a different perspective because you're like you said, if you're professionally affiliated with them, then but it's funny, isn't it, how you don't take advantage of the fact that they would say yes. I probably
would definitely say yes. They would definitely say yes. I felt bad for so many years. So like, again, in a little team, our little publishing team, and one of the members of our publishing team does a lot for, or he used to do more. Jeff, I'm saying that for him so he can feel guilty. He does a lot for like setting up little like radio. He likes to set up like radio interviews and stuff that I don't know has a real direct impact on sales, honestly, but he does like to do it. And it is good in the long run to have had that, because you have to have so many touches, for people. And it's not like it costs money. And again, I think it brings him a little bit of joy, but he had set up a radio interview like way fast, right? Like maybe just a couple of months after we had like started the whole thing, and we didn't even have a ton of books. We didn't even have books, right? So like the my main series books, like we had not even contracted an illustrator for them yet. And so then the only one that we had was and I have a little standalone fantasy book where a little girl turns into a wolf in the story. And but I had written that one for my daughter, like as a gift. So like I had that book, but when they did not contract with me about that book. That book was like an add-on to the contract. It was like, well, if we're going to do these other ones, then we may as well take that one under it was totally an afterthought and not a direct thought, but it was already done. So then we happened to have that one, but then I had this radio interview that Jeff booked. And so then I was like, the only place that was available was like online, but it was a local radio interview. And I didn't want to say on the radio interview, you can get it on Amazon.com. No offense to Amazon.com, because I sell a lot of books on Amazon.com. So people are going to do that anyway. But so then I feel like I was like not wanting to say that. I wanted to say a local bookstore. So then there is a little local bookstore that actually literally just closed 2 days ago. But we love them. But there's a little local bookstore that is in our neighborhood, or there's a couple, but this one in particular, Maple Street Children's Bookshop. And we have a great relationship with them. Like I've been shopping there for years and years. As soon as we moved back to town, that was like one of the first stops to like bring my children and be like, this is our bookshop, that kind of thing or whatever. And so then again, they really know me, right? Like they really know me and have for years. And so I even felt bad in this situation. I was like, look, I'm going to be in this radio show and I don't want to say buy the book online because I feel like, but I want to say, but like, it's not actually stocked in any, and it took me like 20 minutes. And finally, Gladden was like, are you asking if we'll stock your book? Marty, of course we'll stock your book. What's the book? I was like, yeah. So it was terrible. But even in that situation, I felt like I was like, you don't have to stock it for long. Like you can just so that like, for the period of time after, whatever. It was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what's almost, for me, almost a bit worse is back years ago when I first, they weren't kids' books, but when I first published, probably 2009, maybe. And I used to, like I published them myself, had them in my garage and would take them to bookstores and I would get them into the bookstores. I was okay with that. But what was worse is when I would go back to see, like a month or 2 months later to see if they'd sold. And then I would feel really bad, like if they hadn't, or I'd apologize, or I'd be like, so have they sold? And, some of them would be like, oh, yeah, we had no problem getting rid of them. I just knew who they belonged to and they walked in the door and I'd say, oh, you need this book. And I'm like, huh? And then other places I'd go to would be like, no, they haven't, and I'd feel so bad. And that was almost worse than getting them in, was like if they didn't actually get sold, that's a whole different thing. So anyways.
Yeah, I can see that would be terrible. Like you just like added a new fear to my
I'm sure our books would sell once we get them in. But it's another thing to just be conscious of that, that was a bit of a learning hurdle, was to not, because I did have actually the positive and the negative experiences. And like anything, the booksellers that took my book under their wing and, like put it in a good spot and recommended it, it would sell. And the ones that just shoved it at the back, well, how are people going to find it? Like it didn't sell. So
yeah,
depends on that as well.
Yeah, I think that also like points to like a personality difference, or I don't like to blame things on personality because I feel like this might be a thing that you're working really hard at and I don't want to diminish it, but because I like doing stuff on consignment, I just wouldn't do it on consignment for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't want to have to go back. It didn't even occur to me to face them. And it didn't even occur to me the like horror of facing them when like the book hadn't sold at all. So then that hadn't even occurred to me. But like the having to like keep doubling back around orders, right?
Of course.
Yeah, like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wouldn't be able to keep up with that, like all of that.
That was the old days, the old days of self-publishing. There were no, I think it was, maybe I got the date wrong, but it was pre-Kindle. It was, if you wanted to publish a book, you printed it and you walked it around town and, eventually I got a distributor. But even still, even when I had a distributor in Australia, I would still pop into bookstores and see if it was selling. And the ones that some of the people that owned those stores were like, wow, the authors popped around. They would literally, as they were talking to me, take my book, which was shoved out the back, and stick it right at the front. And then the sales would go up in that store. So, there's nothing that seems to counteract face-to-face. When people know you.
Salesperson, Elena. You really are.
No, I wasn't selling. I was just connecting.
But that is selling, right?
It was by accident.
You're a good connecting person, Elena.
Connecting, yes, and I have to get better at the selling part. But definitely the connecting, and it does make a difference. I must admit. Well, it used to in the days when I used to do it, but I haven't done it now. So, yeah, it's just being like kind of not proud of yourself in a sort of ego proud way, but like this is like my thing, and I'm pleased with it. I'm not going to go, yeah, you know, this book, it's like you kind of, and not taking the punch if you haven't sold it. That's so important. Like just going, oh, well, what can we do to change that? Or how do we work around that? That's what I used to do with the stores that I visited. And it was a lot of hard work. I don't know that I would go to that much effort these days, because you do make such a small proportion from the bookstores, but it does raise your profile, actually. It does. Yeah. So
That's cool. So it's funny to me because I look at my I live in New Orleans, if you hadn't figured that out yet. And when I look at you know, you can look at your the distribution of like where your books have sold across the country, like when you look at like the Nielsen book scan map thing. And it's always so funny to me, like how far down the list New Orleans is. And you know, which is, but like that's my bad, right? Or there's another little bookshop that is pretty much equidistant to the first one that closed, but they're also small and independently owned, and the owner is really cool. Like she's really cool. It's just that like the other one, like we had been at for years, which I think is a thing that happens a lot. But so I do go. The other one's Blue Cypress Books, and I do go to Blue Cypress sometimes. But we went to Maple Street all the time, you know, right? So, but it was really funny because I went in because I was like, oh, I haven't been in this bookstore before and it's in my neighborhood, so I should go in. That was the first time. And she's got a nice mix of used books and new books. And so I was browsing the books and there was like a really great set that I was like looking over and trying to decide. And as I was trying to decide, I noticed that she had my book, but it wasn't front facing. It was like the skinny little spine of one of mine. And I was like, oh, that's funny, right? I was like, that's cool that she has the book stock. So like, as I was buying the other books, I mentioned to her, I was like, I actually saw one of my books like on you. She was like, one of your books? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, well, which book? And so I pull it out and show her. She was like, oh my gosh. She's like, you have the worst marketing team ever. She's like, I only ever even heard about these books because someone came in and requested them. I was like, you're right. I do have the worst marketing team ever. Partly because like we've not trotted them around. And this has to do again with not just mindset, because I don't actually fear that those books won't sell or do well. It's more like positioning. Like I always feel like actually we're going to end up jumping ahead because we're going to jump to Stephen J. Smith. But the positioning, right? So I always think about local market like family. I hate selling books to family. I will give them the book. Here, have a book. Like here you go. Like if I have some books, you can have them. It's fine. Because I can't make a living selling books to my family. And it's not been my goal to just like sell 50 books or whatever, right? So then I don't try to sell books to my family. I often don't even tell them when things are happening with the books, which annoys them, but is true. And I think of my city the exact same way. And so then like if like Jeff or Kayla or no one else is like walking around the city, which I guess is a thing that we should like prioritize doing, being like, you know, you should go, you should stock these books, you know, you should order them and blah, blah, blah. But at the beginning, I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be like local author. I feel like that's, for me, I was thinking of it as limiting, but I think I'm wrong. And then B, I was like, it's like you're dipping into the same pot. Like, how many times are you going to be able to sell books to the same people in New Orleans? It's like, you know, this like, it's like, it seemed like a wrong thing, but then like we talk with people, like we can get back into our actual thing that we're supposed to be doing. We talk with people like Stephen, who like has very intentionally like set up his books as local. Like his books are local Virginia, which is one of the 50 United States. And which, and I mean, it's not a tiny state, but it's not a huge state. It's not California. It's not Texas. But he is doing pretty well, doing exactly the thing that I was like, I don't want to do this. So yeah. Are there things that you took away from Stephen?
Yeah, it's definitely that. And you know, like I remember my years ago stories. I have the worst or best years ago stories, don't I? Anyway, I was recording a CD. I used to record meditation CDs, and I remember saying to the sound engineer, who was, you know, quite a sort of famous Australian musician. Oh, you know, when I've recorded enough of these and they're super popular, I can just hide away and just make up meditations and never have to go out in public again. And he said, oh, if only the world worked like that. But actually, the less visible you are out there, whatever it is that you're doing, he said, your sales, he goes, I don't know how, he goes, after this many years of doing it, he said, your sales seem to reflect it. You know, like and I think that's now even online, you know, if you're not about sort of saying things, doing things, putting out a new book, or doing a promo, or, you know, like walking to your local bookstore, even in the scope of a couple of years, you're forgotten. And it's, I remember thinking, spewing, you know, like that was my plan. I was going to hide away and be a hermit, and I couldn't do it. I think it's important to hit the pavement. In fact, the other week I said to my husband, how about every year we pick an American state and tour the state, go to all the schools and just promote my books? And he sort of looked at me like, I guess we could do that. But, you know, I think it's like just shifting that mindset again to how can I be more visible than me? You know, like people want to see you, they want to talk to you, they want to go, wow, you see the effect you have when you walk into that school. It's putting that in our mind more and more, like even a small bit of that, I think. I mean, Stephen's, you know, selling more books than I am. And I mean, his books look fantastic. I've read them. They are very good. But I don't think mine are terrible. But if I'm just lying in my bed writing all day and I ain't out there, you know, like actually spreading them a little bit, then how do I expect them to spread?
Yeah. So I feel like that's a thing too that I took away from Stephen was his balance. So he does not write the whole year. And he doesn't write all the time. He spends as much, which I think he's in like sales and marketing. So like, I think, you know, he's like understanding the power of like making those connections and like establishing like a place for them to go. I feel like I have often been thinking of, and my mindset is shifting around this. And maybe because I'm starting to have more books, but I feel like I was always like, if I do all this marketing effort, and that is actually part of the reason that I slowed the team down too, because I was like, look, if we are like talking to all these people, if we're hand calling bookstores and like all, you know, all over the place or whatever, but we've got 2 books to sell, like wouldn't that conversation be the exact same conversation when we have 10 books to sell, but we could maybe sell more books like that time, like it, you know, so then but that's probably not, again, I was probably wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
I
have the same logic. I'm like, no, this series isn't quite enough. Wait till I get my next series as well. And then I'm like, no, actually, I probably need at least 3 series. And you know, Karen has standalone books. You know, so I mean, she even proved you don't have to even have a series necessarily. She gets out and about more than we do. You know, like
she does, and she does it like really intentionally too, which is another thing. So I had set a goal for this this year to do 3 school visits, which I actually did, just saying. But I also I was like, excellent, check. Like it didn't like make me want to keep like doing them. And actually I totally cheated because I didn't actually contact them, but I did set myself up to be able to be contacted. So like I was contacted through my website all the times,
Terrific.
And so I feel like that should count a little bit
Definitely.
for it. But we'll see whether or not I will set a goal of being more proactive about it.
So would you say, like, after hearing all these, and I'm sort of looking at them all as a whole now, with Donovan doing kind of the conventions and the markets, and then there's school visits in there, and there's visiting local bookstores and local libraries. Do you still feel more dedicated to building the online presence, a bit like adult authors do, rather than sort of saying, as I hear many people say, oh, in order to succeed in middle grade or children's books, you have to hit the pavement? Because there are, in the adult author world, lots of authors that do not hit the pavement, and that they don't contact schools or obviously bookstores, and they do very well just with the online presence. Are you still, what's your percentage? Like, are you trying to do 50-50? Is that a fair question?
So I haven't, so I think that it's more like a perspective thing. So I think that it can definitely work hitting the pavement first. And essentially you're hitting the pavement, you're like hand selling the books. But when you hand sell your books, it does not actually boost your like online presence. But it does like make more people who will talk about you, and then maybe like drive people on. So then you don't know exactly how that's going to hit. I like bookstore sales and also online sales because they do feed off each other. Like they do kind of make you more visible. And here's the thing that I have realized, or maybe it's not a pattern. So like maybe this is a thing for us to test out and see if it's a pattern. But right now, it's like the beginning baby, maybe it's a pattern kind of thing. Because I haven't hit the pavement or asked. I do have someone who has like scheduled interviews and like scheduled radio and like podcast and like blog kind of interviews. But beyond that, everything has been like doing things just online. And I think that after people have seen the things online, that's the only reason, because I haven't been calling schools and stuff, that's the only reason that they would have contacted me to come out to the school buildings, right? And like any bookstore that stocks any of our books, well, there are a few, like there's probably 8 to 10 of them that we have relationships with now and have called and can call and be like, oh, okay, there's a new thing, which is easier. Anyway, but any other bookstore, it's because somebody asked for it, probably, or because the bookstore owner saw something online and then like stocked the book from there. And I think there might be something to say about people doing things because they chose to. Maybe, I don't know. I'm making this up as we go along, right? But like people like being like driving themselves to action might be a little bit different. I didn't realize, here's a fun fact that I was unaware of. So I told you that my favorite little bookstore has just like literally just closed, and it was actually not for lack of support. They didn't own their space, and so then it's hard when you don't own your space, because the person who owned the space really wanted to use it for something else, and they had been there for so many years that they were probably paying relatively low rent, and they were like, I could get way more rent for this if you were not in this space. So there were more factors than just whether or not people were going in and buying books, although that's obviously harder and harder these days, for bookstores. But I didn't realize until he was like, we're so proud of you and how well you're doing. And he's like, and your books are always like among our bestsellers in the store and blah, 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 blah. But he had an intern that was working for him. And he was like, oh, check and see, Marty. He's like, we need to make sure that we have a few copies. We're going to order a few copies even as they were packing up and stuff. He's like, we're going to order a few copies, blah, blah. And I realized in his explaining to the intern that I think they can see how many copies of the books have sold on their back end, which I was unaware of.
Right.
But it makes a ton of sense, right? Because then whether or not somebody's like that's probably a really smart measure for a bookstore. I've never owned a bookstore. I don't know how that works, but that's probably a really smart measure, but also it's self-feeding, right? So then if you've only sold your books by hand, then when you walk into the bookstore and they're like, we see that you sold 7 of these, I feel like they would treat you differently than if they look at the back end and they see that you sold 20,000 of them, so then, I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know all of that.
Yeah, wow.
I also don't know because I don't know all that. And I should just take Glenn. Actually, maybe we should have Glenn on the show. Oh, I wonder if he would come on the show. He's so sweet. I don't know that he would. He might be like, oh, I'll just tell you and you can bring it on the show. But
ask.
It would be so I'll ask. But I think it would be really cool because I don't know like all the back end, and I don't know and I have no idea like if online sales, like, so for example, if you sell books at Barnes & Noble online or Walmart online, does that key or trigger whatever is going on in there? Like, I have no idea. What's happening on the back end of booksellers and how they are communicating and knowing with each other. That is a thing that I need to know in order for us to move forward.
Valid. Okay. That's good info. We need to know that. I agree.
Yeah, all right. So now we have 2 hopeful future segments: Ask a Librarian and Ask a Bookseller.
Yeah, but it would be really great to know. You're right. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. So then we've kind of touched on Donovan. I think that for me, the thing that I'm sorry to do an abrupt topic jump. We're okay? You okay?
Yeah, well, I'm good. As long as you're okay with you jumped out of sequential. I don't care. I'm good jumping.
I know. But I jumped out of sequential because Stephen came up organically, and now the whole thing is just thrown to the wind. Now it's
it's all good.
We were saying about Donovan, I feel like the thing that I took away less than wanting to be able to do a bunch of shows is that sales sequence thing. And I realized that I was doing a little bit of it, but like I can do it way more intentionally. So I, again, am not afraid of talking to kids. Like, that's fun. I was already doing a thing where if I was being forced to be at a table where my own books were being sold, that I can't just do that. So then we have coloring sheets. And I would just make sure that I had a giant stack of coloring sheets so that I could be like, oh, just take a thing, baby. You don't need to buy anything. Just take a coloring sheet. It's fine. Whatever. But Donovan like totally uses that intentionally. He has his bookmarks on the table. That's like an intentional part of his sales sequence. It like engages the person. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I was doing a correct thing. So I'm going to keep doing that thing.
Yeah. Except that you said, here, take a coloring sheet. You don't need to buy anything.
But you know what? They end up buying it anyway. But I think it's like the low pressure. I feel like that must be sales as well. But maybe only if you really believe it. Like, it's like, I don't want you to buy anything that you don't need or want. Like that. Please don't buy the books if it's not something that you need or want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but shouldn't you leave that up to the person visiting your table rather than preempt them either way? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, I have been chastised by more than you.
I bet I do the same thing, but isn't it funny? Like, actually, I used to do that all the time with my workshops. the big priced ones. I'd be like, honestly, I swear to you, like, you know, it'd be like low $1,000. And someone will come up to me and say, I want to do it. And the first thing that would come out of my mouth, because I was so guilty that it cost so much, was, I don't think you'd like it. I don't think it's your thing. And they'd be like, no, I think I'm good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just warning you, the material's pretty bad. That's what I would say. And then they would, I think they must have thought reverse psychology. They'd all book in, and I'd feel so bad. I'm like, but I've warned them, that it's bad. That's so stupid. Such a stupid thing to do. Anyways, but he was, you know, he expects them to at least come and look at the books, and he gives them space to decide, but he invites them to look at the book and potentially buy it, which is the whole point that is there, which is great. So
absolutely. Yeah. And the whole thing about like letting them get the book in their hands, you know, and where they flip the book, I'm like, he's really thought about like the journey of a buyer, right? And so then for me, that's very useful because that probably translates online as well, right? Like but in person especially, because for me that there's, you know, I have a little resistance about that. So then being able to think of it like a logical sequence that happens and not like a scary random thing that happens is helpful for me.
So I think you're, you know, like when I've gone up to bookstore, you know, like a book kind of market thing, and if the person's sort of sitting there like sort of staring at me, kind of almost saying, so, you know, how many would you, I get a bit like, I don't want to buy it now, you know. But so I think to some extent, like inviting them to see it, but giving them the space to decide, you know, rather than sort of the shop owner that stares at you and waits for you now to make your decision while they're watching you, which some people do. I probably wouldn't do that. I don't know if Donovan does. We didn't ask him. But he might.
Yeah, I think he also has the cool shtick of being able to draw the whole time that he's sitting there. So I'm sure he's able to divert his eyes like as he's doing that. And then another thing that we got from Donovan is like some lingo about being able to talk to and hire new illustrators that we're working with. So like there are, you know, a couple of really choice phrases that I was like, oh, that's really helpful. Like I'm looking back at my notes and it's are you experienced in doing client work? What? I didn't have that language. Like that's yes, it's like drawing for yourself and drawing for someone else are probably two, or making art for yourself and making art for someone else, two totally different things, right? Like if someone were asking me as a writer, am I experienced in doing client work? I'd have to be all like, yes, but only in certain contexts, right? So like not fiction, right? But like articles and stuff like that. Like I've definitely done, you know, but so then anyway, I thought that was great.
Very good. Yeah, definitely. And the character development, like we know in terms of getting those characters right, like that was, amazing advice. Really good. Really,
absolutely.
Really good,
absolutely. Any of that, have you implemented any of that yet, or that's still maybe on the horizon for you?
Well, I think I said in that interview that I lost my illustrator. Actually, I fired my illustrator, which was very brave. But and it's put me behind. So, you know, the books that I was like, wow, I'm going to publish like all these books this year. And now I have no books this year. But I did find a new illustrator, and I did ask some of those things that Donovan said. And it turned out actually that I hired my original ever illustrator. Again,
what?
Does that make sense? I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because he vanished, and then I had no illustrator and had to find a different illustrator. And I was like one of these crazy people. I'd email him once a week. Where are you? Come back. I forgive you. Every week. I kid you not, I was like a stalker. And I don't know why. And he vanished for like 2-3 years, right? Right? So, yeah, it was really weird. And then one day he wrote back. And then the other illustrator went AWOL, that didn't work out. And then now he's working on this. And it's like, and it's fabulous. And I asked him those questions, even though I'd worked with him before. But I asked him those, and it made all the difference. I feel now like I'm working with a professional, even more than when I first worked with him. He's now grown into more of that professionals, so that was great advice. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Don.
All right, very good. And then speaking of you're coming out with tons of books this year, we talked with Scott King about story structure and using a pitch to be able to develop your full story plan.
Have you used it? Have you tried it?
Well, so unfairly, I had already read some of Scott's stuff before we interviewed him, and
Cool.
he like some of his ideas were already things that I was kind of using. So then, yes, but like retroactively. What about you?
Look, just having the interview with Scott was like probably my therapy session that I needed, because I was about to set off to write my first ever middle grade novel. No idea what I'm doing, like literally no idea. And he, just some of the things that he said that stuck in my head, like that theme, and knowing that, and like just letting your character come to, there was so many things, I can't even remember them now. But after we had that, I sat down and just went, I can do this. And every time I felt like I couldn't, near the end of our interview, where I'm like, and how many words does it have to be? And he said, just write the, like he was a bit stern with me. Like he said, doesn't matter, just write it. Every time I went off track, I had his voice in my head, like going, get back to that story, just write it. So that was really useful for me, and I finished it, so that's great. Since we
Huge congratulations. I'm so glad that you actually said that part on air, because that's a huge deal. Like, I don't think that, congratulations. That's awesome.
And I'm honestly, his advice did, like, it's probably not a good book because it's my first one, but definitely his advice made my
It might be a good book.
Better.
Don't discount it.
Well, maybe. I'm not, I'm okay if the developmental editor sends it back full of red, like in school, but it definitely made it better than it would have had I not had that conversation with him that day. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so then that's developmental edit, like that we got from Bobby and from Karen and a few other people that we've talked to, Mark Remus, who we haven't gotten to yet in this conversation, really thinking about having outside professionals take a look at what it is that you're doing as you're going on and give you feedback. So that's like slipped in there too.
No, I think it's important to do that. And I say this genuinely, not to downgrade myself. It may not be a brilliant book, but I want it to be the most brilliant that it can be for me right now today. And I think it's not because I'm not good enough or can't write. It's probably brilliant. There we go. I'll say it that way. It's probably the most brilliant book. It's the next Harry Potter. Don't we all think that? But, I would value that guidance of someone who has read so many books and can look at it with those, neutral eyes. And even if they just said, change this character, change this scene, and the rest of the book stayed the same, I would still, I don't know, it gives me a deeper sense of security or something. That I've, done everything I can to make it the best that it can be today. Can always go back and change it again. I think you told me that, and Stephen King had to go back and rewrite one of his books. So
he didn't have to, but he chose to. So then that's, if you can do it, I can do it. It's cool.
And I did end up pantsing it, not plotting it. So I don't know if that's relevant. I tried to plot it, and it wouldn't take, and then I pantsed it, and it must be how my method is. I just remember getting to the end and being like, get out. I would never have guessed that was going to happen. It was like, oh. So yeah. But I was reading Stephen King's book on writing at the same time, so maybe that influenced me because he's a pantser.
Absolutely.
So,
he is a pantser, but he lies because he's consumed so much story. Like he's read so much story and written so much story that he is plotting in his mind. Like that's,
right.
but,
Right.
but yeah. And all of us have consumed a lot of story, maybe, thinking about it more and less consciously, but we've definitely, I mean, humans, that's how we communicate in stories. So we all have had a lot of it. So even the pantsiest of pantsers probably has a little bit story structure kind of in who they are already. So absolutely. All right, very cool. And then I think that the only person that we haven't really touched on, we touched on him very lately, is Mark Remus. And Mark did do, like, he really did, he didn't, I don't know that he necessarily plotted his books, but he held them until he had the whole series done, so that he was thinking of them as a continuous story, so that he could have old threads come up, and so then that some people would do that with outlining, right? And to make sure that and then get the books out a little bit faster. He did it with several rounds of developmental edits, and by making sure that the full series was written before he started putting them out. And one of the big pieces that he was giving to us was his strategy around awards. And so his books have won, he's gone for a ton of awards, and they've also gotten a ton of awards. And so that's really cool. I think that he just got another one the other day.
He did. He did. He did, and he got this, oh my God, I just want to apply it for those awards just to get one of those. But he won gold in some other category, Apple Awards or something, and he got the most amazing Apple trophy, like this green, luscious Apple trophy about this big that he had on, I think it was Facebook. I'm like, oh, I just want one of those trophies. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So yeah, he's it's amazing. He really, I mean, his books are well written. So, again, it's the and it probably just raises their recognition. When people look at them, they go, wow, it's an award winning. It's not just one award, several awards. Traditional published books put a lot of focus on that. So maybe we ought to too. I'm not sure. What difference it makes to the sales. I'm not
either. I've not done it yet. A friend of mine who has written a lot of books, and he has a bunch of books out, and they're all Trad Pub, like big Trad Pub, not like not small press. And he now has like, and I think it's kind of a mid-sized press for this one, but he has one that is coming out that is called Fresh Cuts. And I know that he was like, he's like, I'm going for the awards on this one. He's like, I'm gonna, and I was like, he's cool because he's like a pretty self-confident, at least facing, person. And so then but I'd not heard him say that before. So that was like a new focus. And I don't know if it's like spurred by the book itself, where he was like, no, this one's actually really good. Like, we're going to do it with this one. Or if it is just that he decided that it's time, So either way it goes, like he's like, they're out, his publisher is being really intentional. They've gone, with a ton of reviews first, like really high level, expensive reviews first. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to do the award circuit really hard. And going back to Darcy as well, right? From she was in our first set of interviews, and like workshop masters. I feel like I want a new term. But is that that's one of her strategies as well, but like
Yeah.
really intentional, right? So she's like, I know that I want to do school market, so then I go to get an award
Mhm.
that the school market people
Right.
recognize, and then almost, like as a result, they'll
Yeah.
sell she'll sell 600 1,000 copies to one school district because it won,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
Have you done anything with that?
I have only entered the first book, Lolly and the Lollipop, in the Reader's Favourite Awards, and it did win sort of fifth place, which was kind
I
of
love how you
cool. So
said sort
yeah,
of fifth place.
sort of won fifth place. Like I know, when you run a race, you don't get a ribbon for fifth place, but it's there. It's on the website. So it's basically there's gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, honorary mention, and finalist. And it won the finalist in children's books, social issues. And like my husband said this morning, so who beat you? What were their books about? Um, and to be fair, like the books that did beat me are actually about topics that are sort of
Uh-huh.
social issues. And Lolly and the Lollipop's really hard to place because it's not technically about social issues. It's encouraging kids to have self-esteem. It's helping them to
Absolutely.
go. So it's my sense is like
It like teaches them to meditate. I've read that. I mean, I've read that one. That's, doesn't
right.
it?
It
Yeah.
does, and they probably looked at it and went, oh, it's quite a cute book. It doesn't really fit any category. Like you couldn't give it first place because it isn't essentially social issues. Do you know what I mean? So that it got
Hmm.
finalist is quite. It did.
Yeah.
I was sort of in shock. I was like, I think it was going to get anything. Does it mean it's goodish? Still, I said
It
that about it, which is
does.
crazy.
You have to own that now.
Right. I probably do have to own that now and just keep moving along. Yeah. So, but it was good. I think it's like I did notice whether it was just coincidence. A couple of people wrote to me and noticed the book. They didn't say if they came from those awards, but it seemed like they all this sort of coincided.
Yeah.
And started following me on social media, like the people that go like to everything. I wondered if maybe they'd seen it there or something. I'm not sure. It's always hard to know.
Yeah.
But we'll
Yeah.
see. It'll be interesting to see if it gets more coverage or
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about our conversation on mindset, and that thing that you said about the monkeys, the 100 monkeys theory, which is the
Yeah.
best name for a theory that ever happened. But I wonder how much that has to do with that. It's like, how do you know when enough communication has happened that you would have that sort of critical mass, that it would sort
Mhm.
of turn the tide between people knowing and people not knowing, people being aware and
Yeah.
people being not aware. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do notice also that it seems that the things happen in clusters. So like, it'll be like all silent. And then like for me in the last week, there have been all these like random sources like, oh, heads up, everybody, keep a press kit on your website. Keep press kit on your
Okay.
website. Make sure that it's
Yep.
updated because like I've had a couple of random article, or not random, but like articles that I did not know were come out, and like in the last week or last 3 weeks, because time apparently smooshes together for me, and the press kit is the only place that they would have gotten all the information that they got, and like the correct pictures to use, like
Great. Great.
all those things. So
Yeah.
but like like how do you know when people are thinking about you and are getting to the point where now it's like now it's, is it because like are the awards adding into a pot? I don't know. I wish there was a science, like an exact science to it. I guess that's what we're supposed to be trying to figure out, huh? Like the exact science to it.
And how, like the other funny thing about it was like, you know, that book is my first book. Like it feels so long ago. It almost felt like, am I allowed to talk about that book still? Like, do you know what I mean?
Like that
Like,
too, yeah.
like how long am I allowed to keep going on and on about those books? You know, are people like, we know about them already, shut up. You know, but then there's new people that don't know about that. So how do you balance, you know, when you've got different series and which ones you talk about and which ones you promote and to who, because they might be different than each other. And it's a lot actually to juggle and make those decisions about.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right. So is there anyone, we didn't talk very specifically about Bo Blackwell. The thing that struck me about Bo, and actually the reason that I was like, oh, we should totally talk to Bo and find out what find out what Bo knows, is that his mastermind and the idea of finding people who have similar goals and surrounding yourself with people who have similar goals, which is, I think, helped by the internet. Yay, internet. But also, it's hard to keep a balance because it's without meeting people face to face. I find that it's hard for me to know whether or not we really have the same goals. So then there's that. Anyway, I find that very useful and has made me be really conscious about like who I am spending author time with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of face-to-face connection with other authors though, don't you?
I have been. That was a goal for this year. And I'm sad. It's sad that I have to be so list oriented, but that was a goal for this year. And I've become a lot more active, not as active as the actually active people are in our local Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators chapters, but I've definitely become more active. And through that, I have like joined smaller critique circles that are in that, which takes, it's time because you have to read other people's writing and also give them critique as like it's not just like you going and getting your stuff critiqued. So then I've done that, and I really find that helpful because for me, it's easier for me to know whether or not the person and I have similar goals when we've had either I mean, this is sort of face to face, but like when we've had a face to face conversation, I can tell a little bit better. I think a lot of times on the internet, like people get spammy or they don't think of the other people as real people on the other side. And so they're just like, here's a link, you could totally buy my book, or here's a link, you could totally like leave me a review if you will, haha. And it's like, yes, but like, would you do that with a random person that you hadn't met, that you hadn't ever had a conversation with? Like, would you? Yeah, anyway, so then that makes it a different goal, like the goal of that would be like a sales goal with me as the buyer, right, as opposed to like an elevating craft goal or like a network, like it's different. And there's nothing wrong with having a sales goal, but it's not my goal, so then we wouldn't match in that. So that's made me more conscious about how I'm trying to balance my time to be able to make space for all of those things. And I have also booked in on several writers retreats. So I went on a writers retreat in July. Yes. So I went on a writers retreat in July. It was really good. I ended up cutting about 20,000 words out of a draft that I had already done.
A lot of words.
And it is, but also like I felt, again, our mindset thing, I was able to say to myself and believe myself when I was like, so I'm a writer and writers write. And so then I'm not afraid of like, this is fine because I'll just write more words. And there was actually nothing wrong with the words that were there. I was deciding originally I the way that I planned it was for that to be 2 books because of a lot of reasons that I won't go into now, but I was like, I really need them to be in 1 book. And so then I needed to do some restructuring to put 2 books into 1 book. And so then I was like, there'll be more words. It's fine. But so I've done that. And then I have another one in October. And then I'm going to the 20 books to 50K. I was going to say it's in the inverse.
You are not, you lucky duck.
In November, I'm going to go.
November,
so.
woohoo! Well, you'll have to report back about that.
I will totally.
We'll do a bonus episode.
Will we? I don't know. I'll let you know. We should do a bonus episode with that.
Depends how much material you have to share with us. Take notes and give us a bonus episode.
I will totally take notes. I think that this one is an action-oriented gathering. So I don't think it's as much you sitting back and listening to workshops. I think it is meant to be like a writer's workshop where you're writing. And I can totally talk about it when I get back. But I don't know if we want to spend an hour with me. But I'm not about that. We'll figure it out.
I tried to get out to real people in Australia. Real people. I tried. I think I was putting off booking the Society of Children's Books Authors and Illustrators thing. I put off booking till the night before because I think I'm like terrified of seeing real people, and I finally did. And then she wrote back, "Oh, it's booked," and I'm like, "Oh, what a shame!"
I'm like, gosh, darn it!
I know. At least I tried, but it's like I maybe I'm still in that space where I don't want to necessarily go out yet. Like I think I'm still trying to find who I am without yet doing it in a big space. Like I feel, because I'm very vulnerable to other people, not in a bad way, but like I'm really hypersensitive. So like when I'm with others, I'm more affected and influenced by them than maybe a regular person. Maybe we're all like that, I don't know. But I'm definitely like that. So I feel like I need to know who I am as a writer
before you go in, so that you're not unduly influenced.
Right, exactly. I think that's where it feels like I'm at, and hopefully I'll eventually be brave enough to mix with
I feel like
other
that's a good goal, and like that's a good strength, because you can't take everyone's, like, it's workshopping a novel, like, or a book of any kind. You can't write it by committee. That's gonna end up in something absolutely terrible. So like, it needs to be more like, benevolent dictatorship, where it's like, I hear you and I'm hearing your concerns and I'm consciously either saying yes or no to them. I'm not dismissing, but I'm thinking about figuring out, does that work in here? And then saying yes or no. So I feel like that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Done.
So did we run through the whole thing?
I think we did.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent bit. As always, it was super lovely to talk with you, Elena.
Likewise.
And will you be in charge of telling people where they should go to find us online so that I don't mess it up?
Absolutely. So www.indiekidlitpodcast.com for show notes, and if you want to watch the YouTube videos of us, of our beautiful faces instead of hearing our voices, you'll find it there. And thank you again for listening to the show. As always, if you have a few tiny minutes up your sleeve, we would love a review, good, bad, or indifferent. It just lets other people know what you think and lets the show be found. Thank you so much for listening to us every second week as we make new discoveries and try to crack the Indie KidLit code. Is that what we're doing?
I think that we are. I feel like we're getting a lot closer. We have a ton of information now. We're going to start like assembling it. Okay. All right. Till next time.
See you on the next show. Bye.